It's a powerful image, isn't it? 150,000 people, united, ready for war, all because of one name, Adolf Hitler.
A name that still evokes such, well, horror.
Exactly. And the question that always comes up is, how? How did this seemingly ordinary boy become responsible for such unimaginable atrocities?
That's really what we're digging into today, looking closely at Hitler's early life. It's a period that often gets overshadowed,
Totally overshadowed.
And what's really striking is that the information we have paints this picture of the young man who actually wanted to be an artist. It's just stark contrast.
It really is. We've been looking through accounts that detail those key moments, the influences that shaped his path early on.
Right.
And what we want to do for you listening is try to understand that improbable journey. How did he go from obscurity to absolute power?
We'll unpack the pivotal events, maybe some of the psychological factors, without getting too bogged down in every single detail, of course.
Right. Keep it focused. So let's start there. The aspiring artist.
Okay. So born in Austria, Linz, April 1889. His adolescence, by most accounts, was pretty uneventful.
And not a great student, apparently.
No, described as smart, but lazy and undisciplined. But he did have this real passion for drawing, even from an early age.
And his family noticed, even though they weren't artistic themselves.
Yeah, apparently they were, quote, taken with his drawings, his watercolors. The word used is ecstatic, which seems quite strong.
Wow. And by 11 or 12, he's already thinking of it as a career, a vocation as a painter.
That's right. But this didn't sit well with his father, Elois.
Ah, the father. Described as violent and focused on alcohol.
Yes, a difficult figure, it seems. He wanted Adolf to become a civil servant, a stable job within the Austro-Hungarian system.
Which must have caused friction. Big time. The account mentions cries, tears, could possibly be trowels. That's quite an image.
Intense conflict over his future, definitely. Art versus the civil service.
But then something major happens.
Yes. When Hitler was just 13, his father died suddenly. A heart attack.
Which, in a way, removed that big obstacle to his artistic dreams, didn't it?
It did. So fast forward a few years. He's 18. It's 1907. He leaves Linz behind and heads for Vienna.
Vienna. A huge cultural hub then, right? Like Paris.
Absolutely. And he arrives completely convinced of his own talent. He thought the entrance exam for the Academy of Fine Arts was just a formality.
That real and very strong self-confidence bordering on, well, arrogance, believing in his own genius.
Totally. But, reality check.
Academy didn't agree.
No. They saw his work, his canvases showed, a certain pencil stroke, some meticulous effort, but they found it lacked originality.
Ouch. That rejection, described in Mein Kampf, is one of the worst moments, like a thunderbolt in a clear sky.
You could imagine. Absolute crushing for someone with that level of self-belief.
But how he reacted is maybe even more telling.
Right. He didn't accept it was his fault. He blamed the jury. He even admitted later he hadn't worked hard enough, that he just showed up, hands in his pockets.
Zero self-reflection there, just blink.
A pattern starts to emerge, doesn't it? This externalizing of failure.
And this is where things start to get really dark. The darkest years. A social collapse.
Yes, this is a period where he kind of disappears from view, but something is forming inside him. A deep, a visceral hatred of others.
So he stays in Vienna despite the rejection.
He does. Living in a tiny maid's room, hiding the failure from his family back home. They thought he was studying at the academy.
Wow. Living off a small inheritance from his mother, who died a couple years earlier.
Exactly. And he just sinks into bitterness. No projects, no real prospects, just drifting.
Getting up late, cafes, reading newspapers. Sounds pretty aimless. And avoiding work he felt was beneath him.
Completely. Until the money ran out. By age 20, he's homeless.
Homeless. Sleeping on park benches.
Sometimes, yes. Seeking refuge in shelters. Trying to earn a few pennies painting touristy landscapes. Didn't eat much, as the account puts it.
Those years must have just fueled the resentment, right? Convinced it wasn't his fault, that he was misunderstood.
Absolutely. And this sense of victimhood gets tangled up with his unwavering belief in his own exceptionality, his genius.
So any setback isn't just a setback, it's
fierce hostility from bad and almost demonic enemies who wish him harm. His perception is already warping reality.
And who does he start identifying as these enemies?
Well, Vienna at that time had a very vocal anti-Semitic press, blaming Jews for society's problems.
He starts reading this stuff.
He does. Papers like the Deutsches Volksblatt, comparing Jews to a harmful foreign body needing evacuation. Horrible stuff. and even more radical papers like Astara with explicitly hateful caricatures.
And he sees this as the explanation, the reason for his own failure.
He finds the reasons for his downfall in this poison. It feeds his social resentment, the idea that, places are taken by people who shouldn't have access to it, by Jews.
So he's basically lost at this point, mid-20s.
Seems that way. But then, 1914, summer, World War I breaks out.
And this changes everything for him.
Dramatically. He's Austrian, but he volunteers for the German army. He wants to defend the German people.
And in the middle of all that violence, he finds purpose.
Strange as it sounds, yes, a reassuring environment. The army becomes his first real sense of belonging since his mother died. A home.
And he transforms. From the lazy student and failed artist
into a model soldier, dedicated and obedient. He serves as an estafette, a liaison officer, a messenger. Dangerous work.
And he gets recognized. For the first time, really.
Yes, he's awarded the Iron Cross, a high military honor. It became one of his greatest prides.
But then the war ends, November 1918, the armistice.
Which for him is a tragedy. It means going back to being penniless, familyless, aimless.
He must have been desperate to stay in the army.
He was. And he gets help from an unlikely source. Karl Mayr, head of intelligence services.
Mayr. He becomes Hitler's gateway into something new.
A decisive role, absolutely. Mayr was worried about communists, far-left agitators infiltrating the returning troops.
That he needs informants.
Exactly. He recruits Hitler, described as a vulgar little informant, initially to spy on other soldiers, identify reliable ones, denounce the bad elements. He played on Hitler's patriotism and his need to stay employed.
But Mayr saw something else in him, too, beyond just being an informant.
He noticed Hitler's speaking ability, his unparalleled flair, this almost permanent verbal incontinence. He could really harangue people, give speeches.
A raw talent for public speaking.
Untapped, perhaps. Mayr realized Hitler lacked education, so he sent him to take some courses at the University of Munich, history, politics, to give his ideas some structure.
And what happens there?
He gets exposed to these radical anti-Semitic economic theories, the idea that Jewish finance capital was out to destroy productive nations.
Which was like pouring gasoline on a fire for him, presumably.
It was a revelation. It took his existing anti-Semitism and twisted it into something even more extreme. Completely crazy, obsessive, radical, completely new.
Hatred of Jews becomes the absolute core of his thinking.
The pivot, yes. And we see this laid out starkly in a letter he wrote in 1919 to an Adolf Gemlich. It's violent, raw.
What does it say?
He calls Jews an alien race, compares them to racial tuberculosis. He argues for a reasoned anti-Semitism, leading to a methodical fight on the legal level to remove their rights.
And the ultimate goal.
The final objective, he writes, is the definitive removal of the Jew. Infernum. Removal.
Wow. At age 30, this is described as his first political act, moving beyond just the army circle.
Exactly, setting the stage. And then comes another key moment, just a few months later, September 12, 1919. A beer hall in Munich.
Another intelligence mission.
Yes. Mayr sent him to spy on a tiny far-right group, the German Workers' Party, DAP. Only about 50 members. He was meant to just observe.
But he couldn't keep quiet.
Not when someone stood up and argued for Bavaria to break away from Germany. For Hitler, with his vision of a greater Germany, it was unthinkable.
So he reacts.
Strongly. Jumps on a table, delivers this absolute fanatical speech, attacking the separatists, defending a unified Germany.
And the audience.
Captivated. Yeah. And Hitler has this realization, when I speak, people listen to me.
The account pinpoints this exact evening as the start of his political career.
The precise second, it says. He joins the DAP right away. Member number 55. But with big ambitions.
And he rises fast.
Incredibly fast.
Yeah.
By early 1921, less than 2 years later, he's gone from being a small brewery stirrer to the party's star speaker. He's filling huge venues like the Circus Krone in Munich, 6,000 people.
What drew them in? Just the radical ideas.
That and his speaking style. He tapped into the suffering of the German people, their rage, anger, pain. He created this authentic collective enthusiasm, even winning over hecklers sometimes.
His delivery was different too, wasn't it? Not like the old-style politicians.
Completely unheard of for the time. Not the haunting, academic, quavering voice. His was choppy, broken, short sentences full of hate, aggression, a sort of chief warrant officer tone. But it worked then.
He realized he could move crowds, play a bigger role.
A national role. He takes over the DAP, aiming to lead all of Germany. And he brings in modern tactics.
Like communication strategy, focusing on image.
Exactly. An ultramodern communication strategy. He understood the strength of the image, way before many others. Look at his appearance. The mustache change.
From the older style to that distinctive small brush look.
Right. Breaking with the past, mirroring younger trends in Munich. And he teams up with Heinrich Hoffmann, a professional photographer.
His official photographer.
Who helped him craft his image in the studio. Learning poses, dramatic gestures, creating this instantly recognizable style of a man inhabited by his convictions. Revolutionary for the time.
And he understood the media game, didn't he? You have to talk about yourself. If there's violence, it doesn't matter.
He actively sought out controversy.
Yeah.
Staged disruptions. Firing a revolver in a beer hall to announce the national revolution, even if it meant getting arrested.
Because the arrest itself generated headlines.
Exactly. He knew how to exploit it. Disrupting rivals' meetings, ensuring the papers wrote about the National Socialist raid, mentioning his name again and again.
Then came the branding, the party symbol.
He found the original DAP logo very bland. He wanted something powerful, something that would strike the spirits, outdo the socialists, the communists, the nationalists.
It's the swastika.
Adopted in 1920. He connected it to the far right's fascination with Germanic mythology, Aryan superiority. He presented it as the symbol of German dominance, especially over Jews. The sign of our fight against this global plague, he said.
And the flag colors were strategic, too. Red from the communists, white from the old empire.
A calculated mix, trying to appeal to different groups. Renaming the party to National Socialist German Workers' Party. Nazi. Combining nationalism and socialism, hoping that would resonate.
So within a year or so, he'd built this recognizable brand.
Personal brand, party brand. And then he needed muscle. Visibility.
The SA Sturmabteilung, Storm Detachment.
His personal militia. Brown shirts deliberately copying Mussolini's black shirts, the account notes.
And their purpose, beyond just security.
To make the party look strong. Turn meetings into demonstrations of force, parades, discipline, creating an impression of power. And, crucially, orchestrating violence for publicity.
Provoking fights.
Deliberately. Like that big brawl in the Hofbrauhaus beer hall in 1921. Mugs flying, lights cut out, it got them in the papers.
So the violence served a media purpose.
Absolutely. Hitler told them to keep it up. All excuses are good. The press reported on SA members attacking Jewish people, beating opponents. This negative publicity was, as the account says, Hitler's oxygen.
Which brings us to 1923. He feels strong enough to make a bigger move.
Yes. 55,000 members, 800 SA troops. He attempts a putsch in Munich on November 8th. Tries to seize power by force, march on Berlin.
Takes government figures hostage in a beer hall, fires his revolver again. National revolution.
But it fails. Badly. The army and police are better armed, better organized.
He's arrested, tried for high treason. Looks like the end, right?
It looked that way, but it wasn't. He already had a new plan forming. He still believed he'd lead Germany.
And while he's in prison, Landsberg, April 24, he works on something significant.
Mein Kampf, my struggle. He dictates it to a fellow inmate. This project gives him new energy. It's the matrix of a political program.
Aimed at making him the undisputed leader of the nationalist right, the voice of veterans.
Yes, and the failed putsch teaches him a lesson. He shifts strategy. No more force, for now. He decides to pursue power legally, through the ballot box. He wants to win the election.
So Mein Kampf isn't just venting, it's a blueprint.
It's a huge book, over 600 pages, a monstrous attempt to lay out his whole ideology, ultra-nationalism, the racist ideas from the 20s.
The core themes are there. Aryan superiority, blaming Jews for everything.
Comparing Judaism to syphilis, a parasite destroying nations, the vision of a Germany without Jews, and the need for Lebensraum, living space.
Lining up Austria, Czechoslovakia, Poland, even Russia.
Yes. The book basically says the current fight is just prep for a war to conquer that vital space. It becomes the foundation for his election campaigns.
But campaigns cost money, and the party was broke after the push.
Right. He gets out of prison in December 24. To run a national campaign, he needs serious funds. He needs the support of big business.
German industrialists, iron, steel, coal guys in the Ruhr.
Exactly. But they saw him as an extremist, bad for business. The socialist in the party name scared them, too.
So how does he win them over?
He uses an intermediary, someone more palatable, Hermann Göring.
The war hero, flying ace, well-connected.
Precisely. Göring gets the mission, seduce the industrialists. There's a key meeting at Hitler's place in Munich, November 1927.
And Göring plays the part.
Oh, yes. Confidence, staving borrowed Mercedes, chauffeur, and he makes promises. Big promises tied to rearmament, straight out of Mein Kampf.
Like what?
We want to find weapons, he tells them, implying huge future contracts. And a hint of reward for early backers. The first who will join our party, we will not forget them.
And it works, on some of them.
It does. Fritz Thyssen, the steel magnate, he'd refused Hitler before, but Göring convinces him. Thyssen trusts Göring's judgment.
And Thyssen provides significant funding.
He admitted it later, helped by the party headquarters, the Brown House. A huge step up from beer halls. Hundreds of thousands of marks initially, plus ongoing contributions.
So Göring delivered. Hitler now has a war chest.
A comfortable budget, enough to fund massive campaigns, big rallies in Nuremberg, that innovative airplane tour.
The airplane tour, giving him that image of being everywhere at once.
Yeah, multiple cities, multiple speeches in a day, totally new. Plus the posters, the bombastic slogans. Hitler dominates Germany.
And the timing. The Great Depression hits in 29.
Perfect storm for him. Germany is devastated, record unemployment, hyperinflation, economic chaos. The traditional parties seem helpless.
And Hitler presents himself as the alternative, the hope.
Exactly. He's seen as different. He'd been jailed. He's an outsider, rejected. He sounded authentic to many, like he would speak truth.
That slogan, Germany, wake up.
It resonated powerfully. A call for national resurrection. And the votes started pouring in.
From just 3%.
To 18%, then over 33%. The Nazi Party becomes the largest in Germany.
Leading to January 30th, 1933.
Adolf Hitler appointed chancellor, head of government. The little agitator of Bavaria is Germany's most powerful man, just 10 years after that failed push.
An absolutely astonishing ascent. And once in power, his obsession is making Germany the greatest power.
Yes, which leads to this massive transformation in the country. Huge construction projects, highways, railways, and critically, a massive military buildup. Tanks, guns, bombers, factories running full tilt.
These pharaonic works, as the account calls them, displaying power, but
also massively benefiting the companies that backed him. Siemens, Krupp, Thyssen, IG Farben, they made colossal profits from state orders.
But there's a very, very dark side to this industrial boom.
A horrifying dark side. Some companies, chasing profits and maybe this warped idea of patriotism, become complicit in the Holocaust. IG Farben is a key example here.
The chemical giant, trapped by his absolute quest for profits, becoming involved in the final solution.
It's chilling. They didn't directly operate the gas chambers, but their operations functioned thanks to this extermination. Hitler knew Germany needed to be self-sufficient for war. Synthetic materials were key.
Synthetic gasoline, artificial rubber, things Germany lacked naturally, essential for tanks, trucks, the Blitzkrieg.
And IG Farben could make them. Hitler gave them huge deals, starting in 1933 for synthetic oil, then rubber. It guaranteed their fortune.
So they built massive factories. But even that wasn't enough for Hitler's biggest ambition, invading the Soviet Union.
Right. That required unimaginable amounts of fuel and rubber. 4 million troops, 600,000 vehicles. Production wasn't keeping up.
So the military pressures IG Farben to build another factory in the east, near the future front.
Yes. An executive, Otto Ambros, is sent to find a site in Silesia, Poland. Needs rail lines, flat land, coal, water.
And the site he chooses is right next to Auschwitz concentration camp.
Conveniently located, providing ready-made manpower. Deportees, political prisoners, resistance fighters, intellectuals, Jews. Held in inhuman conditions, used as slave labor.
And IG Farben signs a contract with the SS for this labor.
March 1941. They pay the SS a tiny amount per worker per day, 3 or 4 marks. And they're explicitly told they can exploit this workforce without limit. Use this workforce as you see fit.
So from spring 41, thousands of Auschwitz prisoners are forced to build this IG Farben factory.
Yes, about 5 kilometers from the main camp. Supervised by the SS, but also by IG Farben's own people who saw the conditions. Prisoners regularly beaten, subject to extremely rigorous discipline, dying on the construction site.
This pact with the Nazis drags IG Farben right into the heart of the final solution.
Deeply entangled. We have accounts like from Charles Parent, who arrived on a transport train in October 43. He was 21.
He describes the arrival, the selection on the platform.
Vividly. How the most fragile women, children, the elderly, were sent straight to the gas chambers at Birkenau, told they were going for showers. Zyklon B. He realized Auschwitz was a ruthless machine to kill industrialized death.
But Charles was deemed fit for work for IG Farben.
Yes, being young and robust, he was sent to Budamonowitz, a subcamp built specifically for IG Farben near the factory site.
And the welcome there. Chilling doesn't cover it.
An SS officer tells them point blank, you shouldn't come out alive. If you disobey, it's death. If you pilfer, it's here death.
Total dehumanization. Heads shaved, clothes stripped, numbers instead of names.
Identity erased. Charles worked 12 hours a day digging foundations for the rubber factory on maybe 800, 1,500 calories. Exhausting, brutal work.
And the death rate was horrific.
In Charles's group of 260 men, only 75 survived more than 2 months under those conditions.
And I.G. Farben's response to workers dying
Was to implement selections within Bunaronovitz to weed out the weakest. Prisoners no longer fit for work are transported to the Auschwitz-Birkenau camp to be exterminated there.
They were actively sending their own exhausted workforce to be gassed. Charles nearly died in one of these selections himself.
Incredible that he survived. In total, around 25,000 deportees died working on that I.G. Farben site at Bunaronovitz for a factory that was never even completed. No rubber, no fuel ever produced there.
The horror only ended when the Soviets liberated the camp January 27, 1945.
A date we now mark as Holocaust Remembrance Day.
After the war, the Nuremberg trials sought justice. Hitler, of course, escaped trial by suicide.
Yes, 24 senior Nazis tried, half sentenced to death. But there was also a separate trial for the leaders of I.G. Farben. About 20 of them, including Otto Ambros.
And Ambros claimed ignorance, that he didn't know the fate of the workers.
Unbelievably, yes. But historians are clear. It's inconceivable that executives on site and those at the top didn't know what was happening right next door. You couldn't ignore the smell of burning bodies, let alone the daily reality.
Yet he wasn't convicted of crimes against humanity.
No, convicted of enslavement, sentenced to just 8 years. He was out by 1952, continued his career, died peacefully at 89.
And I.G. Farben, the company itself,
dismantled, broken up into several firms we still know today. AGFA, BASF, Bayer among them.
It leaves you with that final thought from the survivor, doesn't it? That this isn't just history, it's a warning.
A powerful one. About vigilance, about fighting against these forces, and about resilience. As Charles Perrin said, I'm a winner and not a loser, a winner.
What a journey we've traced from that failed art student in Vienna all the way to the dictator responsible for such suffering.
Highlighting those key turning points, the rejection, the bitterness, the war-finding purpose, Mayr's influence, the discovery of his oratory skills.
The propaganda, the branding, the calculated violence, the shift after the push, Mein Kampf as the blueprint, seducing big business.
And that horrific alliance that funded his rise and fueled the machinery of genocide.
It really underscores that his rise wasn't just about ideology, was it? It was personal frustrations, societal factors, exploiting opportunities.
A complex, toxic mix.
Which leaves us, and you listening, with a pretty heavy final thought, perhaps. When you consider those seemingly insignificant beginnings, the role of chance, the choices individuals made, what does it tell us about how easily history can be shaped, for good or for truly unspeakable evil?